Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted the number 1 would be Mean Girls, number 2 would be The Beekeeper, number 3 would be Wonka, number 4 would be Anyone But You, and number 5 would be Migration. And because, like I was saying last weekend, there's only really one wider new release, and it wasn't really looking like it was going to really make that much traction. Of course, I got all 5 of my predictions right for this weekend, and a couple of you also got your predictions right, so here are your shoutouts right now. Congrats, guys. There are a couple of you that were trying to think outside the box with your predictions. Some of you thought I.S.S. would make it in. Some of you thought Anyone But You would overtake Wonka, which that is not, any prediction is an interesting, solid prediction, you know what I mean? And I'm glad that you guys had the balls to do that. But unfortunately, you didn't get it right. So let's go over what happened in the overall top 10. Pretty much same, except for maybe 1 or 2 surprises. So let's get right on into it. Number 1 was, of course, Mean Girls once again. Not having like a devastating drop-off from its opening weekend, but it was a little bit into the 60% range. Like it was higher 50s, the percentage drop, which isn't awful. We've obviously seen it be worse, but it's not necessarily great, even for a weekend, like I said, that only has 1 new release that has not been marketed very well. But it made 11 million this weekend, adding now to a domestic total of 50 million. It is behind the original film by 36 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at 66 million. So the most important thing of all, it is 6 million away from officially doubling its $36 million initial production budget. So either way you look at it, whether the drop-off is not where you want it to be or not, it is still going to be considered a success by the doubling point rules. It still has a ways to go until it outgrosses the original film, and worldwide it needs 64 million until it does that for the worldwide numbers. But either way, it's about to be its own success, and if it can stick around long enough to triple this $36 million budget, so that would be 108 million, that would be the point it needs to cross over, then, even more of a success. You know what I mean? I don't really have much more else to add to this because, yeah, it's just kind of a slow weekend, not really much more ground to cover with some of these movies, so let's just move right along to number 2, which is The Beekeeper. I still don't have a production budget for this thing, so I'm not sure where it's at as far as its money, but, it's still clinging on for dear life, making 8 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 31 million. For David Ayer, it has outgrossed Street Kings by 5 million, now needs 10 million until it outgrosses End of Watch. Worldwide, it is sitting at $38 million, so bumped up just a little bit from its domestic intake. It has outgrossed Harsh Times by 32 million, Sabotage by 20 million, Bright by 38 million because Netflix, and 37 million. It is now 37 million over The Tax Collector worldwide. Those are all worldwide numbers. The Tax Collector, because that was a COVID VOD release pretty much. Very few theaters it was in. It now needs 19 million until it outgrosses End of Watch, and it becomes one of David Ayer's highest grossing films that isn't Suicide Squad or Fury, so, it's still trucking along. It would help if we had a little bit of a production budget just to gauge where it's at, because if this thing is like 50 million, like it cost 50 million initially, then obviously they're not in a great spot. But if it's like somehow a $20 million movie or a 30 million one, it's like, okay, a little better, I guess, but there's just no way of knowing as of recording this. So let's move right along to number 3, which is Wonka, making 6 million, adding to a domestic total of 187 million. Last week we talked about how it already outgrossed the Johnny Depp movie worldwide. Domestically, it still has a little ways to go. It needs 19 million until it gets there. So we'll see if it can maintain just a little bit longer to do that. I think I was talking about how it still needs to get to 600 million to quadruple its $125 million budget. I had the number wrong. It needed to cross over 500 million to do that, which it already has. It is now sitting at 531 million. If it gets to 625 million, then it has made 5 times its 125 budget. So that's kind of incredible to think about. If it can maintain just a little bit more and squeak by, we're gonna have another kind of quiet, slow weekend. It's looking at. We'll talk a little bit about that near the end. But it just makes you wonder, what are audiences going to see that they haven't yet, or what will people maybe see again? If anything, who knows? Next week could be really depressing also, but we won't think about that right now. Number 4 is Anyone But You, still clinging on, making 5.4 million, adding to a domestic total of 64 million for director Will Gluck. It has outgrossed Easy A by 6 million. It now needs 21 million until it outgrosses Annie. And then big news, worldwide, it is sitting at 100 million. So for Will Gluck, it's 39 million away from Annie. But more importantly, more importantly than Annie, believe it or not, the 2014 hit, because the budget was 25 million, it has now crossed over the quadruple point of that. It has made 4 times its budget. If it gets 125 million, it makes 5 times that. Either way you look at it, it is a pretty big success. I'm pretty sure I saw someone post about how it is the highest grossing R-rated rom-com since Bridget Jones's Baby, the one that came out in 2016. It's the highest grossing R-rated rom-com since that. And of course, you know, it doesn't help that a lot of R-rated rom-coms have gone to gone to Netflix. I mean, not even all R-rated, they could be like PG-13, but either way, rom-coms have kind of gone the way of like streaming. So to have this one kind of be like, hey, it's the biggest hit since 2016, there's still an audience for this if you really, you know, put in the time and the appropriate casting and, you know, you hit all the marks. You know, we could be in a rom-com renaissance now. Who fucking knows? Good on him though. Number 5, we have Migration making 5.3 million, adding to a domestic total of 94 million. So for Illumination, it is still 14 million behind Hop. It is still the lowest grossing Illumination film domestically. Worldwide, though, it is now sitting at $191 million, and it has outgrossed Hop by $3 million. It now sits behind The Lorax by $160 million. So it is no longer the lowest grossing Illumination film worldwide. It is the second lowest. Good on you, Migration. It's so weird because this is like one of their movies that I actually enjoy. There's a lot of Illumination films that I think are like meh to bad, and there's only like a handful that I'm like, that was good or that was fine. And this is one where I was like, that was actually a pretty solid movie, you know? And it's kind of a bummer that it's not getting the same kind of treatment that some of their other high grossers get, you know, whether it's part of a franchise or not. But either way, they have doubled their $72 million budget. And if they get to 216 while it's here, that would be $25 million more dollars in total. Then they can say they tripled it. I'm not sure if it will have that kind of staying power, but I guess anything's possible at any given time. And, you know, they finally outgrossed Hop for one of these statistics. So, you know, there's that. Let's move on to number 6, which is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, making 3.6 million, adding to a domestic total of 114 million. So for DC, it is 26 million away from outgrossing Shazam. For James Wan, it is 23 million away from outgrossing The Conjuring 1. For the worldwide numbers, it is sitting at 396 million, so a little bit away from 400 million. And if we're assuming that the budget is 215 million, that would mean it needs 34 million until it officially doubles that. But like we've always talked about with some of these bigger budget movies and the ones that have rumors of endless reshoots and scrapping endings and all this shit, you know, who knows how much money actually went into this, especially with marketing. So either way, it's not a success. Which, once again, it's just so odd because that first Aquaman movie just blindsided everybody. Like, yes, it came out at appropriate holiday season, but it was like, it's competing against Bumblebee and Mary Poppins, but Aquaman was like the clear box office winner that holiday season. It was so bizarre. And now we have the sequel, and just based off of the timing of release and poor reception from the franchise it's in, down the drain. Crazy. Anyways, it has outgrossed Black Adam by 6 million worldwide, so it is the highest grossing of the flop era for DC, and now it sits with 259 million behind Justice League, so clearly not going to get there. But it's the highest grossing of the flop era, so there you go, you know. For James Wan, it needs 747 million until it gets to the original Aquaman, like we already discussed. Not going to happen, but hey, some people saw it. Number 7 is I.S.S, the new release. Some of you thought it would have enough to get in there, and I was thinking maybe, you know, maybe, just maybe, it is a new thriller and there's not much out. Maybe people will point their eyes to the newest thing, but it just didn't have much traction. Either way, it made 3.02 million. This is on a budget of 13.8. So it would really need to blow up worldwide, or domestically it would need to have like a great staying power in order to have hopes of doubling this budget. I don't think, and for a budget that's so small too, all they really needed was just a really decent marketing push, and I think they really dropped the ball on this one, which, like, this is the perfect, the perfect kind of budget for like a low budget thriller. You just want a modest hit, and Man, it's something about Bleecker Street too. Like a lot of Bleecker Street distributed movies are just, oh, they're here and they're gone. So I think it's just a problem with them, really, and how they market their films. For the director, the opening is a couple 100,000 below Megan Levy. They're around the same kind of area though. It is 3 million over Blackfish and Our Friend. Our Friend was a 2021, what was it, Ray Romano, Casey Affleck movie. It's like a family drama. Didn't get around to seeing it, but it looked all right. Domestically, it has already outgrossed that movie and Blackfish, Our Friend by 3 million and Blackfish by 1 million. It sits behind Megan Levy by 10 million. But like I said, unless it has great staying power, great word of mouth, or worldwide numbers come in and boost it up, it just looks dead on arrival, which it's a solid movie. It's a solid little thriller. And for Bleecker Street, it just seems like this is a problem that they have had, Correct me if I'm wrong, but I just... Ugh. Come on, guys. Anyways, number 8 is Night Swim, making 2.7 million, adding to a domestic total of 23 million worldwide. It is sitting at 36 million. They are 9 million off from tripling their $15 million budget. It's not looking like that's going to happen at this point, obviously, but, they got a little bit close, and hey, they marketed it enough where it could be a modest hit. Unlike I.S.S. Number 9 is The Boys in the Boat, making 2.5 million, adding to a domestic total of 43 million. So for George Clooney's directed films, it is 3 million over The Ides of March, and it now sits behind The Monuments Men by 35 million. And I don't think it's going to quite get there, believe it or not. But it is the second highest grossing George Clooney film domestically because of this. So, it may have been a flop since its budget is 40 million and they haven't even doubled that. They're only sitting at 43, but hey, George made another movie. Sorry, he directed another movie that wasn't on streaming. It's not The Tender Bar or Midnight Sky, so there you go. And then finally closing out the video, number 10, Poor Things, sneaking right back in here, making 2.04 million, adding to a domestic total of 20 million. So for Yorgos Lanthimos, it is 14 million away from outgrossing The Favorite. Worldwide, it is sitting at 33 million, so it's 62 million behind The Favorite. The Oscar nominations are coming out on Tuesday, and this movie's going to be all over that. This movie's been at other award shows, Emma Stone, Yorgos, and Mark Ruffalo. People involved in the movie are making the rounds. They're talking about people who have seen the movie. They're talking about it. It's not one of those immediate oh, throw it away. Obviously, you'll find those people who are like, oh, it's a little too weird for me. But it's not one of those that's automatically the general public is like, no, don't see this movie. It's too weird. People are kind of talking about it, embracing it, and laughing with it, and having fun with it, and just enjoying the movie. So I think, we may have a chance here, especially with the nominations coming out soon. People might actually be curious enough to go see this movie, and maybe they double their $35 million budget. If not, oh well, it's going to make more money than another weird film that cost 35 million, Beau is Afraid. It already has made more compared to Beau is Afraid, but this is the weird movie that people are taking a gamble with, which, either, win some, you lose some. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5, or will it be fun? Because, man, I looked on Fandango, on IMDb, on Movie Insider, and it just seems like there's nothing coming out, and the only thing I could find, according to Movie Insider, is the Jenna Ortega, Martin Freeman thriller Miller's Girl. But how many people fucking know that movie exists outside of a weird sphere on the internet? The people who are chronically online, and some of them don't even see the movies in theaters, you know what I mean? So I don't think that movie's gonna make enough waves to get in here. There's nothing. Once again, I don't... My Fandango's doing the exact same shit where it says Origin's going to be at a theater 30, 40 miles away from your house. It's I'm not driving that far from. Is it going to be at a theater closer to me? Is it going to make waves? Do people know it's coming out? So once again, I don't fucking know what is supposed to be out as a new release. What's going to be a wide release? Nothing? So far, it's nothing. So my predictions are just that number 1 is going to be Mean Girls, number 2, The Beekeeper, number 3, Wonka, number 4, Anyone But You, and number 5, Migration. I think it's going to be a really slow, maybe sad and depressing weekend next weekend, before Argyle, of course, February 2nd. But I think next weekend, unless Miller's Girl really makes some waves and actually does get released wide enough, and, the Jenna Ortega stands actually show up in the theater in person, I don't think we're gonna have a busy weekend. Anyways, what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.